Hey, and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome aboard. It's Thursday, and we we got him.
You caught me outside. Jeez.
Good afternoon, Don. Good evening. How are we doing, everybody? It's Thursday. It's Steering Live, and welcome to the show. We are absolutely thrilled today. We're excited to welcome the coolest cat in New Orleans. Don Vappie has really strong roots in the area, living and breathing the Creole culture, tradition, and heritage, and actually winning awards for his efforts to preserve its fascinating history. A hugely respected jazz banjoist and storyteller, Don is here today to talk about all things banjo and New Orleans. His latest album, The Blue Book of Storyville, is available now at donvappie.com, and it is absolutely incredible. And as Dave Gelly from the Observer newspaper wrote in 2020 when reviewing the album, it's about time someone showed the jazz world what the banjo can really do. And who better than Mr. Don Vappie? Don, how are you doing?
I'm good, actually. I'm doing great. Man.
Sorry about the rude interruption with your tipple before, but
Well,
welcome aboard to the show. That's great.
That's okay. I was you caught me. I thought, oh, I got a minute.
I didn't do it on purpose, I promise.
That's okay. That's all right.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us again, and we'd love to invite you before we, get into the conversation. Do you want to play a little something for us and get us kicked off for the afternoon?
Yeah, I'll play something.
Awesome.
I mean, why not?
Let's do it.
So, let's see. This is an old Sam Morgan tune, Sam Morgan band called Bogalusa Strut from the late 1920s.
right. Fantastic. Great to hear you play.
Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. I did the same thing when we did that show at Bela Fleck in New York, man. I get distracted. I know all these banjo players are looking at me, I'm like, oh shucks. I caught myself. Okay.
Start overthinking things.
Yeah, exactly, man. How you doing, Dave?
Doing real well. It's good to see you. It's been a little bit now.
Yeah. Well, as Wendell Brunius would say, good to be seen and not viewed.
True. True. Well, let's talk about this album that you released this past year, the Blue Book of Storyville. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this, and also as you're getting into it, why don't you tell the people that don't know what Storyville is as well, to kind of explain that.
Okay. Well, I'll start off by saying that the album was an extension of my initial my initial my initial plan was to do an album of original music, all written to as a tribute to New Orleans, the 300-year anniversary. So there's 4 songs on this album that are part of that. I wanted to write songs that were either historically connected or just in my experiences growing up in New Orleans. So the Blue Book of Storyville is actually a song I wrote about the Blue Book of Storyville. The Blue Book was a book that listed all of the working ladies in the Storyville district and all of the houses. I guess I could say it. It was prostitution, but they were listed in these books. In fact, you should look this up. It's extremely interesting. In some ways, you can look at it as being a terrible thing, and you can also look at it as actually empowering women, because they actually gained a lot of power in this. So anyway, I didn't get into that in terms of the song. It just came to me and I wrote it. But that's what that's about. And then there's another one called I Would If I Could, which is sort of my impression of my first gig with New Orleans musicians, some of the older guys, of which I now am. And just seeing how everybody, this music is right now it's like 100 years old, 100 plus years old, and it still touches people in a way that they want to dance and enjoy it, and they just it's so welcoming. People come into it. So that was, that song was about. And I wrote another one called Port Bayou St. John. And we know it, Dave, you and I know it as being Bayou St. John. And that was actually where it meets Lake Pontchartrain. It was the first port of New Orleans before New Orleans was actually incorporated as a city. Wow. So, and that song sort of has a bit of a Caribbean kind of thing I didn't realize it, but I guess it does. It was Evan Christopher who brought it up to me. He says, man, this sounds like and I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's one of the dances that we got from the Haitian population that came in. So, yeah, and I did Fé Dodo, which is an old Creole melody. Anyway, it's all about, the Blue Book of Storyville is all about a Creole album, basically. It's a jazz album, but it's kind of like a folk album, too, in that it's a lot of stories. And
the musicians on it they aren't New Orleans cats. Where are they from?
No, I have two guys from the UK, and I have Dave Kelby on guitar and David Horniblow on clarinet, and Sebastien Girardot on bass. All fine musicians I've played with before, and Dave was the producer on it. And it's hard to do something at home that's not exactly I've always lived in this world, man, and I realize that tourists come here, and some of the destination management people, I would imagine wherever you live, the destination management people say, well, tourists are coming here to hear this, so you need to do that, and you have to do what people expect to hear. And I always felt like people are coming here to see what it is. I'm just going to be me because I'm it, right? I grew up here. My family's been here since 1829. So, yeah. So anyway, that's the first time I'm saying anyway in this interview. I decided, I called Dave. I said, hey, man, let's do an album. He says, I want to do a Creole album. I want to do a Creole-based album. I said, great. I'll fly over. We'll do it. And that's what happened. And he was so good at it, it actually got chosen by the Sunday Times in London as the top jazz album of 2020.
Awesome. It's a great album for everybody. Should definitely check it out.
Really proud of it. So thank you very much.
You mentioned Creole, how you wanted to do a Creole album. So and you're of Creole heritage. Can we talk a little bit about what that is for people that don't know, and what role does it have in Louisiana culture and in the music, the influence in the music in Louisiana?
Well, the people of Haiti, before it was overthrown, they thought of themselves as Creole. They came here, and Creole has all these different meanings.
Right.
One of the meanings from the Spanish who were in New Orleans, this is all when New Orleans was changing hands and between the French and the Spanish and the English and back and forth. And they felt like Creole was the designation for a Spanish person of Spanish heritage who was born in the New World. But it's sort of become a term of multiculturalism, I guess. So, and it can be different depending on where you are in the world. But in terms of New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana, it sort of has a very strong Haitian influence. People don't realize in New Orleans Louisiana is a dominant French culture, but we have English, German, Portuguese, Italian. We have all these different groups. It's a port city, so it just happens. And whether, the American racial construct tried to make laws to separate people and create class based on, I guess, skin color. I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. But the point is, the American racial construct didn't really work in New Orleans because regardless of the law, people mixed and talked to each other and married each other. And that's why, like Kalamu Asalam would say, there's more white-looking black people in New Orleans than anywhere in the world. So, I would hope that maybe New Orleans could be a blueprint culturally for a lot of people, at least a lot of people in America. You don't have to be like us, but, be accepting of everyone. We're all the same. We just look different. Mm-hmm. We all go through the same stuff. It just looks different. So
what's the influence in the music, especially when it comes? How would you kind of demonstrate that and talk about that?
Yeah, I can tell you this. I grew up playing the music of my generation, the Earth, Wind and Fire, James Brown, and we had a local group called the Meters, who, and believe it or not, this Triseo rhythm, this. That rhythm is based on it's three strong beats in a a 4-beat measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, ba, ba, ba. So while in Haiti we had 1, 2, 3, 4. Or we had 1, 2, 3, 4. So the two of them together comes, well, just about every hit song in New Orleans was based on that. I mean, Hey Pockeyway from the Meters. I'm playing every little eighth note in the middle of there, but
Right.
So we've had that rhythm has stayed in the culture. I mean, for now. I mean, everybody's taken it. I've seen all these artists in the pop music take it. Some I can't think of their names right now because I didn't think about that question coming up, but I've heard it in some of the one of the female vocalists who's made big hits. That's in one of her songs where it breaks down to this. Boom. Anyway, but that's the second time I said anyway in this interview. But that's one of my words I'm trying to stop saying. But you see, it's that groove. I mean, music is part of us. I really believe the African element of the African concept of one whole. Like music is not separated from life or separated from you cooking or separated from you playing a game. I mean, everything is part of the whole. So I just think that concept is what actually glues us together in New Orleans, in Southeast Louisiana. Now, you know, we have like I said, the American racial construct creates problems because, you know, for whatever reason. But I don't want to get into that. But the real deal is we're all the same. And culturally, we have a lot in common with each other if you're willing to become part of the culture and accept it. So, in fact, at one point, we were talking about Creole, and I actually spoke to a very dark-skinned person because sometimes Creole used to be a divisive term in the South. And Creole, to a lot of people, meant that you were passing for white. You know, you didn't want to be black. You were passing for white, which didn't mean you didn't want to be part of the black community. It just meant you were taking advantage of some things that you could take advantage of because of the racial the American construct, right? So, but, you know, I spoke with some very dark-skinned people who actually felt more comfortable being called Creole than black or African American because Creole more identified them culturally. It had a connection to them. I mean, I have relatives from Africa. I have relatives from Ireland. I have relatives from a lot of different places. So when you say African American, it kind of limits you, you know? And I still can't figure out where white comes from. So, I mean, it's like, okay, it's a absence of color. I don't know. Anyway, that's the third time I said anyway. Damn. Okay. So I didn't want to get into it that deep, but that's kind of where it is.
Sure.
You know, so it's a cultural designation. It's not a racial designation. That's what I'm trying to say.
How'd you first get interested in playing the banjo? You know, growing up in New Orleans at the age you did.
Well, I
It
had
wasn't the most
heard.
popular thing at the
No,
time, probably.
in my generation, we hated it because to us it meant Uncle Tom. It was like, you know, and I mean, I was alive when civil rights was passed. So, I mean, that's part of me, and I'm not trying to upset anybody with this, but I lived through it, you know. I mean, I was in college, and the professor says, "Oh, Vappie, I got a job for you. It's great." The next day, "Oh, Vappie, you can't play that job. It's got to be an all-white band." I mean, it's the kinds of things I went through. So, but the banjo when I realized it came from Africa, the thought came to me, how can one group of people allow another group of people to make them hate something that belongs to them? Now, the way I really got to it is I quit playing music for 3 months because I didn't want to compete with disco. I think the song was Bad Mama Jamma. And you play that over and over for like 20 minutes. And I said, man, you could teach a chimpanzee to play this. I quit. And I quit the band. But the thing is, I started working at Werlines for music, which doesn't exist anymore. It was the oldest music store in the country. And I picked up the banjo just to clean it off. And tenor banjos are real popular in New Orleans because I have another theory for that. But I picked it up, and when I played it, I thought, man, that's very percussive. It's very short. And it reminded me of the funk lines that guitar players played. Like if I was in Earth, Wind, and Fire, something would be like. That kind of stuff. You know, Motown, there was always two guitar players, one playing chords, like, and another going, doing a little percussive part that was kind of like a fill. And I thought, damn, the banjo's perfect for that. You know, you don't have to mute the string or nothing. It's just popping right out there. It's perfect than muting a guitar string. So that attracted me. And then I just started to like the sound of it. And I realized all the different things you could do with it. I mean, you know, I play ballads with it. It still sounds pretty. There's all these banjo jokes too, you know. But it's really can be a beautiful instrument. It's an instrument. It's not a symbol of anything. It's an instrument. It's an evolved from the goni or the halam. And when I get to play with African musicians, they embrace me. So, and I actually did a lot of school programs in the late 1980s and the 90s. And I would try to teach kids, you know, that this was not the negative thing that maybe their parents thought it was.
Right.
So.
Do you want to play maybe a ballad that you mentioned? The banjo can be used for a ballad. A lot of people just think of the tenor banjo or the four-string banjo as this, you know, chink, 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 you know, very loud and fast.
Chink, chink, chink. Shake, 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 shake your booty. I know, yeah, that's what that sounded like when you did it. But that's exactly right, man. Because when I first started playing and I got on the scene, you know, we're playing Bourbon Street Parade. And everybody's like, da, 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 da. That's what the banjo players played.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that sounds like a train crossing. But I played I would play things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as my wife is a historian, and she listened to some Haitian music, and she said, you know, you play more like what you would think the influence, with all the influence of jazz, of the Caribbean and Africa and all, you kind of play more like that than the guys that just play this. So they would tell me, oh, you know, you don't have to do all of that. Just play this. And I'd say, oh, thank you very much. And when they leave, I do what I want, right? But by a ballad, I mean, and Robert Parker turned me on to a lot of banjo music. You know, he turned me on to Harry Reeser. And that was I mean, he wasn't like African or nothing. He was, but he played some interesting things on the banjo, you know, like and I probably can't play it, but you know, you know, that kind of stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting, so I started learning some of that. But then I thought, banjo's cool, and it's got its qualities. Maybe we can learn a ballad. So I learned Stella by Starlight on it. Oops. Anyway, that kind of stuff. So I didn't think I'd play that today, so I didn't practice.
Sounds great. It's a great demonstration, though. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how you feel that the banjos, the 4-string banjo is versatile, and you've definitely influenced me in thinking that way. And where do you think the 4-string banjo can go in the future? Because it still feels like there's a lot of room for it to grow. That and like the 5-string banjo is starting to grow, with like Bela Fleck and other players into more than just the bluegrass that sort of sound. Do you think that the 4-string banjo can go into that direction and to kind of play anything?
Yeah, I do. I think, but in the idea that any instrument can do anything.
Right.
So, I studied bass, so that was my main thing, and a lot of the way I play and the I guess the ability, my technique or whatever, is based on a lot on what my bass teacher Bob Rowe instilled in me. Of course, back then when I was 18, I didn't hear it. I mean, I didn't acknowledge it, but I didn't ignore it. I remember everything he said to me. And
was this upright bass or electric bass?
this upright, yeah.
Okay.
But I played electric first, and then I played guitar because we couldn't find a guitar player, so I got a guitar. And I actually learned to play guitar chords by sitting at the piano and figuring out what notes were in the chord, and then figuring out how I could play those notes on the guitar within the range of my hand, and then realizing I couldn't play every note in the chord. Like if you play a 9, you can't play, say you play a C9, you can't play C, E, G, B flat, and D. You have to maybe leave something out. So that made me understand which notes were important in creating that color. I always looked at sound as color and a shape or something, and not shape of a hand, but a color, a shade, and that's kind of where I went. And I could have saved a lot of time by taking some lessons. Believe me, I really could have. These lessons are really good, folks. Take lessons. But that's what I did. And, my bass teacher, in playing bass, you learn that shifting is a must because you can't play that many notes without moving along the neck. So when you move from here, when we move to here, that's called a shift. And practicing shifting helped a lot. He had me practice without my thumb touching the back of the bass. I'd practice like this I'd be on the bass and practice playing like this. I mean, my hand would be back there, but my thumb wouldn't be touching anything. So I did that on guitar too. I figured out guitar and banjo. I look at it as, and he always told me, man, your elbows got to be up. You got to have. Basically, he taught me how to engage with an instrument in a natural way. Because if you have to contort your body to play an instrument and it hurts, then you can't do that. You're hurting yourself. Which is why I've played, Mardi Gras time when I was younger, man, 4, 8, 12. I played like 13 jobs between Friday and Sunday night. Because so we're playing all day long. I never get cramps or anything because there's nothing tight in here, If you squeeze, I don't have long sleeves, but if you squeeze your arm, if you just make a fist and squeeze, you can see all this tightness in your arm. And if you don't squeeze, there's nothing there. And I compare that to taking a water hose and crimping it. You're fighting against the flow of the water. You're fighting against the flow of energy. You're fighting against the natural movement. So all of that involved makes me who I am now. So that's when I like that. I play this C arpeggio on the tenor, and I make one shift. It's all in one shift. And in my teaching, I call that concept the economy of shifting. Because the less you can shift, the better. In many cases, I mean, there's always a case where you want to, if you have to play, you might not be able to play it in a certain position. You might have to and shift to do that. But anyway, I'm getting kind of deep into something with no end.
It's very good talking the shifts. I know, taking a lesson with you before you talking about the shifts, and it did really help me. Yeah. So it is very important because the tenor banjo, let's talk about the tuning of it, because it's tuned in fifths like a viola or a cello,
right.
But also different notes, but like a mandolin, but you can't. It's much larger than a mandolin or a violin, so you do have to do these shifts, and so maybe talk a little about the tuning and because there's a question about how you're tuning it, and then why that tuning and the scale length kind of causes you to shift.
Okay.
More.
Well, think of it as a cello.
Yeah.
A cello is kind of like a small bass, but when it's tuned in fifths, the notes are C, G, D, and A. So when I play, say, an open C chord, I'm crossing 3 octaves, and as opposed to maybe a 5-string banjo, which is crossing 1 octave, I think. I've got C here, C here, C here. So it's 3 octaves of C out of tune here. Anyway, oh God, it's the 4th time I said anyway. I really believe that the tenor banjo became the popular banjo in New Orleans jazz because of all the horns in the band. If you go to a piano and you play a C, E, G, play them together, I'm going to say F, A, I'll say G, B, D. That's a 5-string tuning, right? An open. That's not going to cut through as much as, because that openness allows for the harmonic structure of the notes to reinforce things. I might be talking a little not above anybody, but maybe it's something you've never talked about. The harmonic structure of sound. It's a little science, kind of. It's physics, but it's very easy to explain on a string instrument because the string rings as one and then as two halves. You call these harmonics. You know, you string players. It rings as three. It rings as four parts, as five parts, 6, 7, 8, and on beyond where we can hear. But all of that in this one string, it's also ringing these different harmonics inside of that. So by having the range of the chord across 2 octaves, a full 2 octaves, I think it really helps the banjo to cut through and be effective in a band with horn players and stuff. The tenor banjo came about around 1905 because of glee clubs. It was basically a marketing thing. Mandolins and banjos were going back and forth as in popularity. So I forget what company it was. It decided, we'll make a banjo tuned in fifths. We'll call it a tenor banjo. So that's how it came about. But I think it's great. I find myself a little limited when I try to play a 5-string or a plectrum because of the range. Now, of course, when I play this, I've got a basic one finger on each fret, but if you think about it, it's more like this kind of fingering. It's more of a cello finger. If you can do that. This stretch is easy for me because I played bass. Mm-hmm. But even if you can't stretch right now, if you practice, it'll happen. But it takes a while, a couple of months. But if you keep trying, it's going to happen.
And would you say the tenor banjo is more popular in New Orleans than the plectrum traditionally?
Because of the music that's played. Yeah, I think so.
Because of what you just said, because of the larger tuning, and it can punctuate.
But there are plectrum players. So
yeah,
I'm not, I don't want to take away from that because there's some plectrum players and they sound great.
Right.
My personal preference would be this because when I first started, I tuned it like the top 4 of the guitar, which I think some people call Chicago tuning. When you can do that too, it's fine how you tune it. I got hold of a 6-string banjo, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll tune this one as tenor because I've got a guitar tuning. So that's what happened there.
Okay, that was my next question. Why'd you make that switch to tenor tuning? And you didn't want to play the guitar, the 6-string banjo. You wanted to go 4 strings.
It's not that I didn't want to. It's because it was actually an easier transition for me. Right. And you can do a lot of things with it. So I'm not against it. In fact, I still play it a lot. Mm-hmm. It's just that my chosen axe, as we say, is the tenor banjo. And it's really a challenge to play chords and get those colors. You have to be particular about what notes you want to play. Like I'll play just a triad chord, a 7 chord, or I might play a 7 chord as a 3-note voicing, or I might add the 13 by, flat 13. It still has that, I can still get the basic color of what I'm looking for, but I can only choose 4 notes. Mm-hmm. That's a challenge. So
Well, we have somebody in the chat asking for you, a request for you to play "Careless Love." Would you like to play that for us?
Sure. I made a lady cry one time on a concert. I played that. I'm like, I'm sorry, lady. Please don't cry anymore. Love, oh careless love. Love, oh careless love. Love, oh careless love. See what love has done to me. I cried last night and the night before. Tonight I'll cry, then cry no more. Love, oh careless love. See what love has done to me. I cried last night and the night before. Tonight I'll cry, then cry no more. Love, oh careless love. See what love has done to me. See what love has done to me. See what love has done to me.
Beautiful, really nice. Great example of a mellow tune, mellow on the tenor banjo there too.
Man, we were in Orvieto, Italy. I was with Evan Christopher, and we ended with that tune. And this lady starts crying. She's bawling in the back, and I just had to laugh, man. Every time I play it, I think of that because her boyfriend comes up. Hey, you're making my woman to cry. And I'm like, man, I'm sorry, bro. It's just so great, man. Reminds me of Charlie Achapinny way back in the days, you know. Oh, y'all don't know Charlie. He was a drummer in New Orleans.
I don't.
But I'd call his dad's house, man. Because back then I lived in the lower ninth ward. My number had 277. And he says, hey, Charlie is not to hear. So I said, well, he says, give me your number and I'm going to tell him I'll call you. And I said, okay, it's 277. He said, okay, wait. 277. And he would just, that was the way he talked, you know. I just thought it was so charming, man. I love the song of all the different languages, man.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about your banjo. You're playing an open back banjo with a fiber skin head on it, which is for traditional jazz is a little bit unique. Why do you choose that setup on your banjo?
I was looking to make it darker because I just don't like the plastic sound, plastic head. Right. So the fiber skin head made it a little darker. Actually, this tailpiece made it a little darker.
That Ottinger tailpiece?
Yep,
yeah,
sure did. Changed the sound of it. I'm playing an ohm banjo.
Okay, they're friends of ours.
Yeah. I actually got Chuck to make a wooden armrest because the metal ones, I'd wear them out. And I had every suit I had would develop a hole right here. So it was expensive. So I actually don't hold my hand on there as much anymore, but the wooden rest just feels so much better to me. So he worked on it, and they got this nice one here. The other thing, this one's it's similar to their model. I think they called it a juniper. But there's something custom about it because maybe there's no tone ring, maybe. There's nothing metal in here. It's all wood. So it makes it even a little darker. But I like that sound. I like that because I still get the drum. And it's closer to the goni or the halam, you know, because I got to play with the African guys, you know, from Mali and Senegal. And when I play with... It sounds more like that, you know? You know, that kind of thing. And it has that sound. Of course, it sustains a little more, and it's just my preference.
Yeah.
That's all.
And who are some of your biggest influences when it comes to the banjo and traditional jazz as well?
Well, later in my life, it was Danny Barker because I got to work with him, and he played a 6-string banjo. But earlier on, it was Johnny St. Cyr, and who also played 6-string, but I think he might have played tenor. I'm not real sure. But, you know, that early Jelly Roll stuff, it was like, I can't play it. I don't remember. You know. You know that. It's like the real rhythmic, the groove, man. It's the groove. That right hand, you know. And it was that groove that he just had it. And then I liked his bass lines too, you know, like. So that kind of thing, I really dug that about Johnny St. Cyr. Ike Robinson played with Jabo Smith in the late 20s. It was sort of a competition with the Armstrong Hot Five band, for another label. And Ike, I dug what he was doing too. So, and I'd listen to all these different records and not even know who was playing sometimes. And then Robert Parker turned me on to Harry Reeser, who just made me practice more, and learn all these, I can't remember the tune, but it's like those kinds of things where you had these lines. That I can't remember it at all, but that was that, and then some of my guitar stuff, learning how to play chromatically. It's just shifting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So guitar would be more like you just go one fret, but these. Anyway, that's doggone. It's the fifth time I said anyway. That just technique things. I mean, right now I'm just trying to play as melodically as I can, because I didn't really learn a lot of melodies, and I'm more into composing and writing a lot now. So melodies mean a lot.
And do you compose on the banjo ever? Or are you composing on guitar or other instruments?
Sometimes it's the banjo. There was a song on my Banjo a la Creole record. Most of those were composed on the banjo. I call it Grassy Blue because I always kind of liked that finger picking sound.
Okay.
Well, Doc Watson was the cat, bro. Doc would play. He did one called Country Blues where it sounds like he's riding a horse. I could just see him riding a horse, man. So I came up with this kind of open D sound. It's called a Grassy Blue. And the banjo part, then there's a horn line goes. That kind of part. But the banjo does. Right? So it's like this, and the bass line is because I played all of it, man. I did it all on tracks, right?
Right.
It's because nobody's hearing the crazy stuff in my head, man. So I had to do it. I even I forgot a trumpet part when we were recording it. Oh, man, it took me 3 or 4 weeks to build up enough chops to play that trumpet part that was missing. But, I like that, man. I did a session a few months ago. They wanted it to sound like some tune that was a John Denver tune. And he says, man, you play 5-string? I said, I could sound like that. So it's like. I just kind of did it with my pick,
Right, yeah.
So I just, I learned that from Tommy Tedesco. You get a gig, never say no. Man, can you play flamenco music? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll show up with my banjo and try to play that, man. He says, you might not do it. They'll kick you out, but they'll forget who you are, and they'll get a call again.
I've gotten myself into some situations from that mentality, definitely.
Tommy's my man, bro. I love it.
Well, we're heading up to the top of the hour. I know you've got to run soon, and I could keep chatting with you for a long time. But Jamie, do we have any questions in the chat that we need to get to?
No, I think this has been really informative. Don, thank you so much for joining us. I think we've got any. Is there anything else, Dave, that you want to throw in there? There was a question that Dave had, and I think for people like me that are maybe not as immersed in that scene as you guys are, but Dave wrote, a lot of people call New Orleans jazz Dixieland. Is there a difference? Or is Dixieland something else? Or could you explain the differences there a little bit?
Well,
it's a term that we hear quite a lot, and
I can tell you this. Doc Cheatham said everything down here they called it Dixieland, so that's what he called it. There was a movement to stop using Dixieland because of Dixie in it, and to be blunt, the song Dixie was kind of like the fight song for the Ku Klux Klan and the white supremacists. So, we just stopped playing it. Because I think it was written by a black guy. But,
it was. Yeah.
But it's sort of like the Nazi symbol in ancient times being a symbol of peace. Well, it's not anymore, and we don't use it, Yeah. It's kind of like that, so. Man, so no one had a question for me? Oh man, I'm embarrassed.
I think they were
no, we got questions. We got to them already. We kind of fed them in through
okay.
questions about tuning and other items about the banjo.
Get him out of here! Get him out of here! Get him! Bring back the 5-string.
I tell you what, I get a sense that a lot of the people who watch Deering Live really enjoy getting some 4-string action every now and again as well. So we appreciate that a hell of a lot. So.
Oh man, I had a comeback for that. I shouldn't say it though.
Family show, man. Family show.
Bunchy used to say after every comment, Bunchy, our old departed drummer friend Bunchy would say, "That's what she said." So when you said 4-string action, I thought, nah, love you, Bunchy.
See, Michael Corey says it best. Too interesting to interrupt with a question.
I love it.
That's what's going on, and then
that's very nice, Michael. Thank you, man.
There we go. Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I've got nothing to add. It's so informative and so insightful to have someone of your caliber on here. Gino just asked a question real quick. Can you demonstrate some bass line passage in between chords? Ask and you shall receive. There you go. Just like that. Awesome. Well done. Thank you so much for your time today. That was a real pleasure. Really fascinating stuff and just a beautiful sound. And I'm off to go tell production to get ready to make some more tenor banjos because I get the sense that people enjoyed that.
It's funny, but if you play guitar, I think tenor banjo is an easy crossover. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can tune it as a guitar at first, but actually tuning it in fifths, the chords never change. Like G, E, and C are going to be G, E, and C here. It's going to be the same exact shape. If you especially play 3-note chords, they move all over the place. I'll tell you, if you put any time into it, when I was working at Preservation Hall, that's when I decided to tune a tenor. It was a Tuesday morning. I was playing that night. I learned a major and minor and a major and minor, and I went to work.
That's I mean, I remember I was told, get a tenor banjo and you'll start working. And you just use some chords up the neck and
it'll happen. happen, man.
tunes, and it'll happen.
Yeah.
And from guitar, Carl LeBlanc has a interesting way of looking at it. But because it's tuned in fifths, but it's actually tuned in fourths upside down. Carl LeBlanc is a great guitar player in town who plays tenor banjos.
I'm a bass player. That's exactly right. And look how many bass players become banjo players. Because it's.
Do you look at it upside down? And that's what way Carl explains in his head. He's looking at it upside down guitar.
Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely.
Tenor reigns. There we go.
Tenor reigns, bro.
All right. Any closing thoughts, you guys? You're both Louisiana cats. I'm not. You guys got the floor.
I'd love to hear another tune if you have time. If you don't, if you have to run, that's fine. But I'd love to hear one more tune.
Let me do. This is a song on the album, and it's not one that I wrote. It's an old song that is actually shared among the different genres of playing, at least in the banjo world.
So before you play, I want to finish this up by telling everybody to go to donvappie.com to buy your albums. You can listen to them there, download them, buy the CD, which you said is a wonderful coaster if you don't like the CD, but it's a good looking coaster. But apparently, I've heard them; they're fantastic. So please, donvappie.com, go check them out. Don, the floor is yours, my friend.
All right, thank you. It makes a great coaster. Thank you very much.
That's what you said, not me.
I did. If you don't like the music, that was our thing. Buy these CDs, man. If you don't like the music, it makes a great coaster. But this is a song that you guys play. I know you know it. It's called Red Wing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Red Wing was the song played by the ice cream truck when I was a kid. And that's what I remember. Like, and we know the ice cream truck was coming, right? And what used to really bug me, and I was really, really young, it's like that break wasn't in time. 2, 3, 4, 1. It was like, and it would just start at some random moment, but that's a machine. So here I go.